You're now listening to Figure It Out, a custom 1/6 figure podcast dedicated to those who recognize work of excellence. And now, here's your host, Stiff Richards.
Hello, guys. How we doing? Stiff Richards here. Back again with another episode of Figure It Out, your guys' favorite podcast now, huh? I know it is, because it's the only one. You don't have a choice. Early morning, Wednesday morning. I can only really record things early morning, so that's why we're doing the early morning thing. Episode 3, Figure It Out. We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to keep them pumping out. We're going to keep on keeping on. We're going to keep discussing figures and the stuff that we love. I promise it'll get juicier as it goes by. I'm still learning. When I was editing episode 2, actually, I have a MacBook, and that's what I've been using. And for some reason, you're recording 2 hours of video and 2 hours of audio. You don't have space. And as everybody knows, I'm not very good with computers and technology stuff. So when you don't know how to do technology stuff, you just buy the biggest thing you can. And it's like ridiculous. I go in there and I'm like, can we get the most expensive thing for video editing and shit? Mind you, the people that do real video editing are like on Adobe Audition, and they're doing like Pro Tools, Photoshop shit. I'm literally using GarageBand. So yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, but I bet y'all have enough space to upload this. Anyway, so the first couple episodes, people messaging me, they love the podcast, they love what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. But they also mentioned that I'm soft now and I'm being too nice now. So today we're going to be doing a little discussion about my group, 6 Scale Grails. A lot of people, they have their own opinions about 6 Scale Grails, and we're going to give you guys a little history lesson about my Facebook group, SSG. I'm going to be calling a good friend of mine, Tim Samra. A lot of you guys know Tim Samra in the community. He is a custom figure guru. He is a friend of mine. He is one of the founders of 6 Scale Grails. He does this for a living. Super Bad Action Figures is his store. He's got booths in Frank & Sons. The guy literally works 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. He's a workaholic. He's crazy. He's like a father figure to me in some weird way. He's turned me into, kind of like the elitist mindset that I've had. A lot of it makes sense when it comes from Tim. We're going to explain to you, kind of like the rhyme behind the reason over the last few years. So with that being said, I'm going to give him a call here.
Hello.
Tim.
What's up?
I'm the feds. I'm recording. Don't say stupid shit. All right. So, yeah. How's it going, buddy? I know you were drinking last night.
Just a tad.
So it's your birthday today?
Yeah. Today,
How old are you? 69? You're old as fuck, bro, to be fair. How old are you for real? 55?
Yeah, no, I'm 56 today.
56. Congrats, buddy.
I haven't just keep in mind I haven't had my coffee yet. So
you haven't had your coffee. You're hungover.
Drank all night. Yeah.
So it's like 9:30 where you are. You're hungover. You haven't had coffee, and you got my fucking ass calling and wanting to record you to put you on the internet. How do you feel?
I feel awesome.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Super Bad Action Figures. You want to give a plug for that, or you just want to talk around that subject?
I haven't had a chance to tell you that. Congratulations on the podcast, bro.
Hey, thanks, dude.
I have not had a chance to tell you that. I think it's a long, long, long time coming, as you know.
Yeah, we've talked about it for a while.
Yeah. You put together a really, really cool studio over there. It looks amazing. And I don't think a lot of the listeners or viewers of the podcast or YouTube thing, I don't think they realize how long this whole thing for you has been in the making. It's pretty cool that it finally happened. Because I honestly didn't think it would ever happen.
We've been, like I said, we've been talking about it for a really long time, and I know that you have been pushing me for the podcast thing. You've been like, start a podcast. Right. Why the podcast, Tim? Why the podcast?
Well, I mean, you know as well as I do that I think the custom hobby probably needed to evolve, and it's kind of stagnant, and there's a lot of, I think it's what, we talked about it, there's a lot of re-energizing that needs to be done with it. There's a lot of things that are extremely interesting about the hobby that a lot of people don't know, history and thought process, and everyone knows the opinions, of like, don't recast, but and the arguments are ancient old, but there's a lot of really cool stuff to discuss and to get out in the open. I personally think that a lot of people don't know a lot of the behind the scenes and a lot of the what's been going on with like SSG from the beginning to now, and why SSG even came into play. Why you and I and going back to that time, Rob Collins, even Mike Magnus, had footprints in the very beginning of the whole thing. And I think there's a lot of stuff to discuss. And the old figure talk world was cool at the time, but let's be honest, it was a lot of everybody, congratulating everybody and high-fiving everybody. It wasn't controversial, it wasn't that kind of interesting. Yeah. So hopefully with a new podcast, I mean, things will get real and people will hear things that they may not have known about, about the group, about the hobby, and other people with other people's opinions will, and their thoughts will come out, and it'll be kind of cool.
So you want to start this up? Talk about SSG and like what the thought process was when we put it together. Would you like to? Get into that?
Well, when you and I met,
you need a drink of water, bro. It sounds kind of like you got like a huge cock just thrusting your esophagus. Go fucking get a drink of water.
That's not enough water.
Yeah. So go ahead, shoot.
Well, I don't know, man. You tell me. I don't know what year did you and I meet? When was that? How many years ago? How many years has it been?
I think it was, I would say around probably 2015. I heard your name. You were what was your Sideshow Freaks name? Cinema Automatic Tronics.
I think Hollywood Cinema.
Hollywood Cinema.
Everybody called me Hollywood.
So you came around and people were messaging me because a lot of people forget. Like, a lot of people sit there and they say, "Oh, Stiff, you're hated so much by everybody." Meanwhile, I get so, like, everybody gravitates towards me. So I couldn't even explain to you how many people have came to me asking about a figure or a person or a collector or a price or something.
Right.
So people came to me and they said, "Who's this Hollywood Cinema guy? He's trying to trade me hot toys." So your fucking ass came in. No, and this hobby's always been cutthroat, bro. Like, it's always been the biggest dick competition. It's always been who's got the most coolest stuff, who's got the most pull, who's got the artist fucking ear, whatever. I remember you coming in and you again, you have a gigantic toy store. You have booths and stands and fucking at cons and events, and you're heavily involved with, collectibles. You came into this hobby. I don't know exactly how you came in or what made you hear about this hobby, but all I remember is you coming in, because a lot of these guys that collect customs, they also collect hot toys. So you kind of use that to your advantage, and you were you were trading hot toys for the customs, and it was a great way of doing things. And maybe I was a hater, maybe I was a low key, I was jealous.
You hated me,
bro. I was like, who in the fuck are you? I didn't know, bro. You hated me too, though. We fought, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I just hung up on him. Hold on. God damn it.
Yeah.
See, we're learning. This is a learning process. I just hung
What
up
happened?
on you. I hung up on you. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
How many times have I hung up on you in the past though? It's not nothing new. Go. Let's go.
Well, basically, a customer introduced me to the custom world because I really had no idea that it even existed. I've been selling toys since like 2000, and I don't remember what year it was that Frank and Sons Collectible Show had that 6-scale expo where Beto Matali came out from Mexico and with his Freddy figures and some other stuff that he had. But I think it was around that time that a customer of mine, who later became a friend of mine, his name was Chris Hernandez, and he hit me for the whole custom world thing. And I remember in the beginning, I said, you know, who in their right mind? Because this is back when Hot Toys were like way cheap. I mean, they were like less than $100.
Right.
And I thought to myself, who in the world would pay like $500 for a figure? That was back when customs were like way cheap.
Right.
And it was kind of like at the dawn of bashing, you know, when guys were like taking Hot Toys parts of eBay and making their own stuff. And there were a few talented guys out there. I'm trying to think of the names now. They used to do, you know, some decent bashing back in the day before.
Like Elvis?
Yeah, exactly. Elvis is one of them. So basically, I couldn't see anybody paying that kind of money for a figure. It didn't seem even remotely realistic for me to get into that. So I kind of shunned it for a bit. And until I finally caved in, because I kept seeing so many cool figures on the internet. And so I finally caved, and I can't remember what the first figure that I got was. It was probably a bash. I probably had several bashes because I had a friend, his name is Robert Castro. And I know some people have figures that have been worked on by him. And he was a pretty good figure basher at the time. So he was helping me, and I was kind of getting into this. And then I met you.
Uh-oh.
And some weird dude called me out of the blue one day, man.
I called you?
Like, hey, yeah, you called me. I think it was because I was looking for a figure. Maybe I was on the Freaks board, and I was out there trying to find specific figures, and I might have started the trading process back then. I might have found a few figures, maybe a few older Rain Man figures, and I might have traded some for Hot Toys.
Oh,
you know, in my mind,
that fucking gives me
everything
severe
is, you know
chest
me,
pains.
everything is business. You know, it's like, why do I want to pull cash out of my pocket when I can trade stuff?
Right.
And so I started trading with certain guys. And back then, there wasn't a ton of guys getting out, but there were a few guys that were like kind of getting sidetracked off the custom thing because it was, to them, it was, you know, eating up their wallet. And they were like, well, I could get Hot Toys for cheaper. And
right.
They kind of fell into that, you know what I mean? That kind of rut. And I got nothing bad to say about Hot Toys, you know that, but I just, you know, guys were like literally few guys were getting rid of their customs to replace them with Hot Toys. That I thought was kind of a mistake.
Trading Hot Toys or customs for Hot Toys makes me want to fucking run as fast as I can on the highway.
It made you, I think what it did is it made you go, you know, what is behind it? Because I think back then, if we think about it, I think you might have thought that this was all like a ploy for me to buy, you know, to get customs cheap and then turn around and flip them and sell them.
Right. I just thought you were running, you were
keeping everything like a hoarder.
Well, no, I thought this was a business for you, so you were just piling all these customs in your store, and it made me want to fucking just start stabbing your neck. So, and you know, we have battled, Tim. We have battled. Our personalities have battled, and what's cool, what I've always respected about you and, you know, some other guys that I've battled is we don't hold grudges. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we're fucking both grown men. We're both in this hobby. We both share the same passion. So
I wish everyone else was like that.
Yeah.
I wish everyone else was, you know, we're all we're all kind of immature kids at heart, or we wouldn't be collecting these figures. They wouldn't fascinate us the way that they do.
Right.
But I mean, I wish there were more guys in the hobby that could just let things go.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we became friends. You learned probably everything that you know from me. And I'm not going to fucking say that, I'm the shit and you're not.
Oh, no. When we met, no doubt, when we met, I was pretty green. I mean, I probably amassed maybe about 7 or 8 custom figures at that time, which I don't think any of them were Rain Man figures at that time. I think I was looking for a figure, and I think you hit me up and we started talking about it. It might have even been a once custom figure that I was looking at the time, and you were like, "Oh, let me tell you, this guy is my friend," and so I don't know what it was, but I do remember that we were feeling each other out, because I was thinking, this dude wants to sell me figures, and you were like trying to figure out what I was doing, like get the inside scoop on this Hollywood cinema guy. What the hell is he doing? Is he selling these things? And because back then, flippers were like they were like the scourge.
Yeah,
they were like them and recasters. Like recaster and a flipper was like the worst thing you could possibly be in a hobby. It was, and guys cared.
Right.
Guys actually gave a shit.
That's what I was kind of explaining. I was kind of talking about it in our last podcast, how different the hobby is now, bro. Like when I came into it, the guys really did. They gave a fuck, and they were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Who's this? Who's that? And who are you selling to?
Everybody wanted to know what was going on. Everybody wanted to know who owns what. And how,
why do you think that was?
Ridiculed. Huh?
Why do you think that was?
Honestly, I think it was just a very intense time, and people were extremely interested in what they were buying.
Right.
It was more like, it was like a club. Dude, I think people cared a lot more about the seriousness, of collecting. And it wasn't everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a ribbon. Oh, hey, I'm making a new run. I'm going to make 100 pieces if everybody wants me to. It wasn't like that.
Right.
It wasn't like, I decided I'm not going to make figures anymore. I'm just going to do this or do that, and everybody gets one. But back then, people were kind of like, it was tense. It was more tense before I ever knew about that. I mean, by the time I came in, if you remember, it had gotten less tense than it was before I ever knew about it.
But you've seen the tense side of the hobby, though, for sure.
I came in at a point where certain collectors were getting out. Wasn't like a ton, but there were some big boys in the hobby, man, that have been cornerstone collectors that were starting to get out. And I think I was grabbing up some of those figures at the time, kind of shaking my head going, what are you guys? Because a lot of guys were like, seriously, some guys were moving straight into Hot Toys out of custom. And it freaked me out. I was like, why would you want to do that? I mean, these figures are extremely hard to get.
Right.
Why would you want to trade out for something that you can get any day of the week?
Right, exactly.
But that was the first exodus, was like, either I'm going to make a bunch of money on my figures and get out, or I'm going to get into Hot Toys and I'm going to like take one custom and get like 6 Hot Toys for it.
Right. So you want to talk about SSG now? Let's talk about SSG a little bit and how it came to be, and the thought process, when we put it together. Would you like to?
Well, what do you remember, man? It's been a long time, but I mean, it's
okay. So what I remember is arguing. I remember a lot of arguing. I remember a lot of bickering on other, 1/6 Facebook groups.
Right.
Back then, mind you, 2014-ish, there wasn't many Facebook groups. I was on OSR a lot, which was a mistake, being a greenhorn, because I was still sort of new. I didn't understand the politics, and I didn't really understand that there was such a different type of collector. I didn't realize that the guys that are in OSR, most of them, like I would say 80% of guys in OSR, they're not into what we're into, like at all.
No.
It's a different hobby 100%. It's the same concept. It's a 12-inch figure with real clothes and accessories, but it's not the same hobby. And
No.
I didn't really realize that. So I would go into OSR. I would show my figures. You know, I didn't brag about them. I wasn't acting fucking my shit's cooler than yours. But dude, I would get hated on big time. Like there was.
Well,
go ahead.
The first thing people want to know is how. Oh, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? That's awesome. How much did you pay?
Right, and then you tell them
when that reality comes out. Back then you would get jumped.
Oh my God,
like,
dude!
Literally, man, it would be like all these comments would come out of. It was almost like, you know, are you crazy?
Right.
Like, who would pay that? That's nuts. So I remember back in those times, you would be like, hey, because you and I at some point, Rob Collin you were already friends with him.
Right.
But at some point, the three of us became real close, and we had a private chat. And he would say, "Hey, I'm getting murdered over here on a." And will you guys come help me out a little bit? Help me like to defend the position, man. You know, you guys own the same figures that I do, and we're getting called elitist scum. You know.
Dude, those. You know what? Let me tell you something. To this day, people want to. You know, there's still some slight bickering, but
yeah. Oh, it's always gonna be.
Right, but it's not like it used to be, and it's probably because fucking me and you stopped doing it. But I remember, like, people are like, "Oh my God!" Like, our buddy Jason, he's a greenhorn still. I mean, he's been in the hobby enough, but he's kind of intense when it comes to bickering a little bit, and he's like, "I'm getting jumped. Help me!" And I will look at the thread, and there's like two people like politely disagreeing with them, and I'm like, Jason, I used to literally, bro. One time, this dude hit me up on via PM. It was right before I went to bed. This was 5 years ago, and he messaged me. And he goes, "Where did you get all your figures?" And I'm like, "I got them from Rain Man. I got them from Beto Metalli." He's like, "Well, how much was this figure?" And I'm like, "I don't remember what it was. It was like $1,500 or $1,800. And he got so mad at me, and he was like, "You're fucking crazy." And he was like picking at me and shit. And I was like I specifically remember this night, like I was in a good mood. I was like, dude, I know it's crazy. And he kept coming at me and coming at me and coming at me. And I started to get pissed. I'm like, dude, shut up. Leave me alone. And he's like, he kept coming and coming and coming. And I finally was just like, dude, I was like, you are a fucking faggot. I'm like, you probably collect fucking Hot Toys and you just fucking blah, blah, blah. Like I went off on him. So what he did was he edited it. Like you know how you can go in your you can remove your comment, your comment, so he removed everything that he said to me, right? And then he kept my comments where I was calling him a queer and shit, and he posted screenshots on OSR. And when I tell you, Tim, that I woke up with 400 comments in that thread, like it was bad news.
Those were the days of our PTSD. That's when the PTSD was actually forged back in the.
Bro, it was like
a lot of people in the hobby, in the 1/6 hobby, from A to Z, meaning everything from the dude who's right now sculpting out of Play-Doh his next run of head sculpt to the next, big thing to come, and the next really, really, really work of excellence, and everything mass produced in between.
Right.
A lot of people in the general middle of this hobby, they only know me as the guy who has this retail store called Super Bad Action Figures. But the guys in our sector of the hobby, the custom guys. A lot of those guys don't understand. I'm very misunderstood, I think, by a lot of these guys. Some of these guys really don't like me because I'm they don't realize I'm fucking around a lot. Sometimes I'm serious, sometimes I'm not. But all of that came from those years of and months of having to defend just a simple position of like what I spend my money on.
Right. And
you know
people
what I mean?
people don't really realize that, Tim. Like, I want everybody listening, let's not ignore the elephant in the room here. We are, quote unquote, very disliked or hated, if you will, by a lot of by a lot of people in the community because of that fact. Sure. But what they don't understand, dude, like, they think that we just are. We think we collect better, and we're you know, they call us elitist, but they don't understand that we were fucking getting hammered by so many guys as well. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the guys that were fucking us in the ass all the time, I don't think we would have ever went on that stretch of just pure cocksucker. Because I'll admit, me and you are both dickheads when it comes to that, but it's like we weren't just dickheads for no reason. Like, we didn't just say, hey, let's be fucking assholes for no reason out of the blue. Like, we were fucking, like, people talk mad shit about our collecting style, and we were just defending ourselves, if that makes any sense.
There's no secret. And I know some of the guys in the hobby, and I'm not going to mention any names, because a lot of the guys that don't like me actually don't even know that I really don't have anything against them. Nothing. Zero. You know, as a person, as a collector, anything. If I disagree with somebody, it's coming from a place of like no filter, and that's just in my personality and yours. And I think that is the core crux or the core reason behind the creation of SSG and why SSG was put together. A lot of guys think that SSG was put together, and if your listeners or viewers for the cast come pay attention. A lot of guys I think that SSG came about because you wanted a place for custom figure. You wanted a custom figure group. And it really wasn't about wanting a custom figure group. It was about creating a place to be far removed from the rest of the community so that discussions could be had about custom figures and the style of collecting that a lot of guys, and it's a smaller group of guys worldwide to collect this way. But it's probably, at that time, there was probably, I don't know, I would say over 100 guys, but it wasn't like 1,000 guys. So it was a small group of dudes that collected this way. And it was like, let's create, if you remember in the early days, we were like, let's create a group. Let's get off the OSR and off the Sideshow Freaks mess of like, of the disagreements and the fighting and the like everyone's trying to defend their position. Everybody's trying to be, smarter than the other guy or quicker than the other guy or whatever.
Right.
And so this group was, a lot of people don't know, this group was created with the sole intention of getting away from all of that and just having a group where guys that collect this way could have discussions about figures and not have to be, or we don't have to be in an open forum with 30,000 people, 20,000 people and put our opinions about collecting out there.
Right.
And get, all this negative flack either way. It was like we were kind of saving them from us and us from them at the same time. Kind of just put this group together and have and in the beginning, it was my thought process. If you remember, I wanted SSG to be a group where you literally had to almost like submit an application to join. Because if you had a collection, in my mind back then, if you had a collection of like homemade figures and bashes and one Rain Man figure, you weren't really invested in the same kind of collecting that we were. So it was a bad match. Those were the type of guys that were having the problem with us.
It's great that you mentioned that, because that was the original idea for SSG. At least for you wanted it to be, because there's groups out there, dude, that you have to be involved. You have to have weren't you talking about like a Star Wars group or like a photography group that you have to have like a catalog to even be a member? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I was invited into a figure photography group at one point, and they were, I remember part of the rules for the group is that your pictures or your photography had to be at a certain caliber. You know what I mean? It had to be really good, like interesting, and well photographed. And, a lot of guys were using the computer to enhance the photos and everything like that. So back then, when you didn't have a phone app to do it, guys really had to know what they were doing with photography. You had to be a skilled photographer. You didn't have to be some guy, taking runway pictures, in New York or anything like that, or magazines for Esquire, GQ or something.
Right, but you had to be a skilled
photographer. You had
photographer.
to have some talent, and your photos had to speak for it, because the guys that created the group are photographers.
Right, and if you weren't a photographer,
it was a photography group, and it made sense that they're not. They would say, everyone's got to get started somewhere, but when you get your skill level up to something that we find, appropriate for the group, then we'll start putting your pictures up there and let you in.
And I need to say this. I need to say this real quick. Doing that and explaining that to people, it kind of also made them want to, go out and actually buy more stuff to get into the group. And that was also one of the things that you mentioned when we were starting the group. You're like, well, if they don't have any figures, they might go out and buy figures to get into the group, and that helps the entire custom hobby with that mindset. But again, to somebody who doesn't really know about SSG or the intentions and the group rules and shit really doesn't explain that. They come in and they see us and they see the track record on OSR and like arguing to fucking hot toy guys. It all crumbled. It made us look really bad, and now we're sitting in 2020 with SSG not being what we wanted at all. Would you like to touch on where SSG is now and where you really saw what you wished for it?
You mean when we started SSG, it was kind of going in different directions. It never really, in my mind, it never turned into what
you envisioned for it.
Well, Rob, remember there were 4 players in it. There was you, there was myself, there was Rob Collin. A lot of people know him as Fine One.
Fine Design.
There was Mike Magnus, who's now 1-6 Fly group, and we started the idea, created a group for collectors that collected alike, that were all collecting the same type of stuff, which at the time was full figure, artist run type stuff, well-known artists that are doing their own thing from head to toe figure sets.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the preferred thing that we were into. So we wanted to create a place for guys like us to come and be able to share pictures of, their collections and their figures, and not have to deal with
how much,
the criticalness of people's, people are just, they hate for all kinds of different reasons. Right. It's not always just jealousy. It's just, some people just love to do it. They're trolls.
Right.
So it was places to get away from all that, remove it. That's what the initial thought process was. But then we went through different, if you remember, growth periods where it was like, well, let's let everybody in, because people were complaining. Why can't I get in? I have 2 customs. Why can't I get in? And I remember at the time, I was the heavy, and you were. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people have always viewed. I think a lot of people have viewed you as kind of a coarse dude. Spouting out a lot of negativity in the hobby and all this
when
stuff.
When really it was your fucking ass and we were arguing. I was like, let's just let everybody in. I was like, Tim, why don't we just become friends with everybody and we could just enjoy this? And you're like, fuck you, fuck that. But yeah, everybody thinks that I'm the asshole, but we don't need to talk about that.
Well, it was never me saying fuck everybody. I honestly, I have no problems with other people and what they want to do with their money and what they want to do with their collection. I just didn't want to take, like ketchup and mix ice cream with it. You know what I mean?
I thought you were going to talk about, I didn't want to take ketchup and put it on my Michael Myers hands. I literally thought that's where you were going with. But I get it.
Yeah, that too. There's enough of that already happening right now.
Robot chicken shit, son.
Yeah. Well, I just basically think that, I just use ketchup and ice cream because who doesn't love ice cream, and ketchup's good on French fries, man. It's like, they're both great things, man, but if you mix them up, it would taste like shit. So that's what I was trying to avoid. Let guys that collect let guys that collect Hot Toys have the Hot Toys figure groups. Let guys that bash have their own bash figure groups, man. So that those guys can enjoy what they're doing and live in peace and harmony and all that good hippie stuff. I just wanted us to be able, because we were constantly on IM with each other, PM with each other, Facebook, texting, calling each other, having the private chat, constantly bitching about the same old tired topics that we would always have to deal with. I tried to speak up and say something because this artist was getting jumped and this artist was getting jumped, and people had bad things to say about this dude's collection or this guy's figure. I tried to share this, and
it was a fucking war zone, dude.
Idiot came out of the woodwork, man, with his bullshit, and other people followed in. It was just like I was like, we just need to let them have their world. You know what? Let's just remove ourselves from it completely and just create this little microcosm, kind of like, bubble environment for just dudes who collect like us. And it wasn't like, let's have a Rain Man group. It was guys that collected the same type of stuff, the same kind of way. And in that way, we would be able to forego all that tension and all that bullshit, and then we could have our own private discussions about figures in our own world, in our own group. And it started to grow, which was kind of cool. But then, like I said, we went through those growth periods where it's like, well, should we just let everybody in and hope the guys,
catch on? Well, I got so many messages from people, and they're like, dude, how are you gonna get new guys into this? Because like I've stated in the past podcasts, the new guys are the most important part of this hobby. So how are you gonna get new guys coming in and they wanted SSG to become a learning platform, like a learning tool, and you fucking hated it.
It doesn't work that way in the real world. On paper, it looks really good. On paper, it all makes sense. It adds up. 1 + 1 is 2. But that's in a perfect world. Every time, you try that in a situation like this, you have a very small percentage of guys that actually is benefiting them. A lot of dudes just all get in because they want to see the circus. A lot of guys are trolls.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys just want in to turn a screw.
You've also mentioned that this hobby has turned into evolved into like a social theme, and people use this hobby to just pass the time and be friends with everybody on the internet.
There's a lot of lonely people in the world, and the internet has given them friends. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
let's face it, we've all fallen for that. And the problem with it is that the internet is we've lost the tactile experience of people, you know, seeing people and shaking hands and going out to dinner with people and stuff like that. It's all become, you know, I have like 95 friends and they're all on the internet and I've never ever shaken one of their hands. And I'm not saying that people don't make really good friends on the internet, because they do. It's just, it's a place where people have chosen that instead of friends where they work and where they live, and people just become very antisocial. So they've they've kind of ran to the internet to have that experience. And I think that common ground is where everyone is you know, people are looking for common ground to build those friendships, you know, and have those kinds of, you know, similar interests with each other on the internet. Problem is that you don't really know each other unless you spend a lot of time getting to know each other. And a lot of guys in this hobby really just take each other at face value.
Mhm.
They don't really take the time to get to know each other like they probably should.
Well,
So,
a lot of good points being made here, sir. Let's just turn things around a little bit. Let's just switch things up a little bit here. Let's talk about the hobby now as it sits and how it differs from what it was before. Would you like to touch on that at all?
the hobby now, it's basically kind of a dull reflection of where it was. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as interesting, it's not as strong, it's not as exciting as it was before.
And is that just a
Um,
personal, like, I mean, I see a lot of new guys that are pretty excited. Is that just a
well,
personal opinion?
I think guys that are finding it for the first time are you know, they're having their, you know, that's like your first girlfriend, you know, so they're all excited. You know, if I had to compare it, what was it before? Well, there were always clothing runs and sculpting heads and accessories and all of that. That's been going on for as long as I can remember. But the artists that everyone has come to really, really respect and love, and everybody's, there's no longer that like, oh, you know, so and so is going to be making this new figure, and this is his figure, and this guy's doing this figure, and this dude's doing his figure, and everybody's excited about the next new figure coming out. That's kind of dwindled down to like, you know, dull static. A lot of the artists, although I know them all, just like you do, and they know I respect them, and they know that I will always love their work. Highly respect them, very talented people. You know, everyone in the hobby that makes really, really excellent work. I really respect them, but
But
a lot of these guys aren't doing what they used to do, partially probably because of financial reasons, maybe a lack of being sure of themselves, being able to move the figures. You know, there's probably a lot of reasons going on, but the bottom line is that we've lost artists over the years. You know, there's been artists that have ran off with people's money. There's been artists that have like just kind of gotten out of doing the figure sets, and they're now just painting. Maybe making a head sculpt, maybe making, you know, a head sculpt and an accessory set.
yeah,
It's kind of like
there's nobody in the world that hates fucking head sculpt runs more than Tim Samra, everybody. There's nobody in the world that hates that. You're into the full organized set runs.
Let me defend myself there for a second. I think that every artist that does work, that's good work, the one, you know, I'm not gonna get into the artists that right now. I'm not gonna get into the artists that I think are, you know, shouldn't even be
Brought up.
Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not that they're bad people or there's anything wrong with them. It's just, you know, some of their work is just not at the level it should be to be charging the prices that they are. Because they're just cashing in on an old way of, you know, of idea. You know, everybody's an artist now. That's the problem. And it's like that with everything in life. You know, when something becomes lucrative and profitable, and everybody wants to jump in and be an artist. I made this because I'm an artist.
I have seen a lot of that recently. Everybody does seem to think that they're an artist. Well, I'm an artist. I did this. I'm an artist. I did that. Look at what I did. It's like, bro.
Or the guy who's like, yeah, I sculpted this last night and showed it to my wife, and she thought it was amazing. So now I decided I'm going to do a run.
So, bro, motherfuckers, these dudes printing out COAs and shit too. It fucking gives me chest pains.
And the
they're like, there's only fucking 10 of these. Jump on it quick.
I mean, in all fairness to them, they have a built-in audience with some of these groups. Some of these groups, and they've got people that will buy that stuff. I mean, that's awesome for them, and great. It's just it's not my cup of tea. I don't look at things like I can't take things like that seriously. But moving past that, getting back to where the hobby is, there's a combination of things going on when the artists basically lose their way, in my opinion. I mean, that's what I say. They've lost their way.
You've always had, okay, let's just share with the audience here. Tim, I'm not kissing your ass. I'm just saying from a business standpoint, a business mindset, you're a good businessman. And I think that seeing these artists,
appreciate that.
Well, I'm not kissing your ass. You're a dickhead a lot to me, but as I am to you, it's all good. It's all in good fun. But being such a business minded human, seeing all these artists conduct business the way that they are, I bet that makes your skin crawl. Because to be fair, I haven't yet met one smart business-minded custom figure artist yet. Would you agree?
No. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I mean, again, let's say this. That being the case, at the same time, I have a really, really fondness for all these artists. Like, really fondness, because some of these artists will say, "I do this for the love of it. I'm not trying to get rich." Other ones are making a living at it. The guys who are doing it for the love of it, I can't really put a business judgment on their decision.
Yeah, but the guys that are feeding their families with it and conducting a horrible business plan, it's like, bro, what are you fucking doing?
Yeah, let's not name an artist, and let's just say artist A. Okay, this particular guy went from making a lot of money on full figure set runs. He garnered that and was able to raise the prices of his figures based on how fast he could sell them out. How fast, the faster you sell something out, the stronger a secondary market moves right in behind it.
Right.
And I know to a lot of collectors, I hear this all the time from guys who collect everything under the sun. I don't collect for the investment. I don't collect for any of that reason. I just collect for what I love. And I think that's a beautiful fantasy that people have, because it changes overnight. That opinion that I collect for what I love changes overnight when a tragedy hits their family and they have to sell their stuff off to pay to get themselves out of whatever crisis they're in. Now all of a sudden it becomes, oh my God, man, I can't even get anything for this stuff. So, but from a business standpoint, in my mind, the more popular your figure is, the faster it sells out, the faster the secondary market moves in. And that creates a big buzz around your brand. It makes your brand very sought after, and you can start asking higher premiums like all the companies do. It's a formula. You have a strong secondary market. Next thing that happens is the retail price starts bumping up on the next product. So I have watched these guys, some of them, artist A, do a really, really good job of this. And then they hit a curb. They come out with a release that isn't selling well. It's not moving as quick as they wanted to. They panic. Maybe they have 2 or 3 releases, mixed in there, everyone, in between, that didn't do as well. And it's got nothing to do with their talent. It's just maybe just the wrong character choice. Who knows? And they lose confidence, and they start thinking, I can't. Instead of going back to the drawing board and figuring out what worked and what didn't work, now I'm going to go with what's working.
Right.
And asking the general populace of collectors, what should my next figure be, never works.
Oh man, have you ever seen a fucking Rain Man thread?
Yeah, it's death to your brand, man. Because if you go chasing what the populace wants, guess what? The populace on the internet is really good about saying, "Oh, I'll buy this figure," but literally 90% of them won't buy it. They're really good at sounding off. Everyone wants to sound off, and it can create a false gauge of what you're going to be able to sell. Artists are just much better off, in my opinion, going for a character that they're sincerely in love with and they have a passion to do that character.
Because you can see it in the work when an artist does right. When an artist does something that they're really into, it's a night and day difference.
Right. And if we look at the evolution of price, they started out in the $400 to $500 range, maybe $600 range, and got up into the $1,000 range. And for some figures, for some artists, some are in the $1,500 to $2,000 dollar range. That's a big hike, and they were able to achieve that because they had a formula that was working. But when they steer from that formula of I think when Rain Man did some of his best work, when Sarang Kim did some of his best work, and you've got some of the guys that came later like K June and Danzo and there's there's Johnny that's been around forever. It's interesting because Johnny's one of the few guys that just kind of does what he wants to do.
Right.
He picks the character, and that's why he's been very successful.
Your fucking phone is a pile of shit.
Why? What's it doing?
It started to break up, but you're good now. Go ahead.
Again, Artist A, I'm not going to say. Artist A just represents, the artists out there that have just kind of forgot what was working. And they got nervous and they got panicky for whatever reason, and they opted into the, door B, which is making head sculpts or painting head sculpts or, making some accessories or whatever with a head sculpt. And, that's going to be my pathway at making a living now. And they've just walked away from doing what they were doing that was successful at one time. So that's I guess we're getting back to where the hobby was and where it is today, man. And to me, it's taken a lot of the life out of the hobby. At least for me and other collectors too. It's we appreciate the work that they're doing, like a lot of artists are doing. But my opinion, this hobby needs new artists to come in. It needs new blood. We need to see some new faces, some new names. There's a lot of talented people out there. It's a shame we're not seeing their work.
What's your favorite figure right now? Hyde.
Honestly, it would have to be K June's. I know that's going to be cliche right now because it's a very new release and it's got a big buzz around it.
The Jesus.
That figure, I feel like.
What
K
figure?
June, the Jesus.
It's so cool, isn't it? From head to toe.
And I think that that is, even though I really like the journalist, I really like that figure. I think the Jesus is June's. I think that's his Picasso.
You know what I like about K June is he's a collector himself, and he with that he won't release just the heads, just the accessories, which
he's old school.
Right.
He's a young dude, but he's very old school. He's like an old soul.
Right.
And it works for him. I don't want to get into what's wrong or right for any artist. I mean, it's their life, it's their prerogative. They can move in the directions that they want to move into. It just saddens me that
some of them choose to move the way they
they're not
are.
looking at this young guy who's very successful. June sells everything out.
Right.
He's very successful in what he does. And, you know, some of June's work is mind-blowing. Some of it have been criticized by others by not having a clear enough likeness, you know, of this character or that character. But every artist has their own footprint on their figure, and you can tell it's their work. You can tell this is a Kid June figure. This is a indicative of Rain Man. This is a Rain Man figure. This is a one. You can tell it's a one custom figure. You don't have to even. There's no guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
You know by looking at their work. You can put their footprint on each one of their works. So he's very successful, and it's consistent. And it's just sad that some of the other artists in the community haven't taken notice of that and said, "Look, man, this can be done.
Mm-hmm.
It can be done very successfully like that. You know, you just got to stick to the formula that works." And I think K. June does what he wants to do. He makes a character that he's interested in.
Mm-hmm. Like, who the fuck thought of Jesus? You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to do
Right.
that.
Well,
he announced that 4 years ago.
In the beginning, we criticized it. We were like, you know, in a June hears this, which I'm sure he is. I love you, bro. You know that. And I'm a big fan. I've owned almost every figure you've made. I think I actually have owned every figure you've done. But we were like, but Jesus, like, who the hell is going to want to own? He was in the movie for what? How many seconds? Minutes? Right. I mean, it was like barely in the movie. It's like, yeah, he's a funny kind of dude, you know. Totoro's awesome, but who wants the Jesus? No one's gonna. I mean, really. And do you see how even we were wrong? Because,
way wrong.
Because we were like, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it. It wasn't like, oh, it's gonna flop or fail. It was just, I don't get it, man. Really, how is this gonna work? And this dude just kills it. Makes a character that was a real, like, just whatever character in a movie, man.
I don't think anybody thought that he would nail the likeness the way he did.
Honestly, I think artists surprise themselves sometimes. I think an artist sits out to make something, and sometimes I would guess that they're in their mind, they're saying, you know, this is going to be an easy one. I can do this. Is going to be easy. And it turns out to be sometimes the most difficult character they've ever done. If you consider Rain Man's Psycho figure. A lot
of people argue with me saying that the Rain Man Psycho set is the likeness is perfect, and I'm just like, man, no, it's not.
It's far from perfect, but it has Rain Man's footprint all over it. You can see his style in the Norman Bates figure, man, and at the end of the day, that's why you buy a Rain Man figure. You're not buying a Rain Man figure or a Johnny Chukaman figure, or you're not buying a June figure or a Sarang figure or any of these artist figures. You're not buying them
because of the likeness.
The reason that a dude would buy a Hot Toys figure,
right?
You know what I mean? You're buying it because it's that dude's work.
It's got their stamp on
it. It's not about. I mean, who looks at, you know, anything that any artist does and goes, oh my God, he painted that city. It looks so real.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's not why you're interested in that guy's work. You're interested in his style. You're interested in the way he does it, the way he presents it.
I wish more people understood that too.
Yeah.
Because people don't. They're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, oh, this figure or that figure, like the likeness. I mean, likeness is obviously an important thing, but it's the idea that the artist had going into it, and it you like you said, it's the artist's stamp on the project. That's what makes the sets that they are.
And honestly, if we go back and we look at all the old work, every artist that picked his own figure, his own project,
and because he was interested in it, he had a passion for that character or that film. That turns out to be his best work.
Right.
It
Look
always
at
is,
Rain
man.
Man's Bill the Butcher and
Bill the Butcher.
what about
Doc
There
Holliday.
Will Be Blood, the Milkshake Man.
There will be exactly.
Doc Holliday.
That-
Those are all he's like, "Oh man, I'm going to do this."
And when the artist says it puts up a vote to everybody, I mean, that's why whenever there's a vote, I can't be. A lot of guys have been really pissed off at me. They're like, "Dude, can you just shut that guy up?" You know,
it's funny though because you know this hobby, bro. Everybody in this hobby knows everybody else. Like, it's funny, you buy a figure, someone's like, "Well, who'd you get that from?" And you instantly know who that guy is, where he got that. It's a small community, and when you see those Rain Man, like, what's Rain Man's next project, or what would you like to see? You see all the guys that aren't going to buy the fucking thing. Just,
exactly.
Dude, make this, or I would like to see this in other people's pictures. It's like, bro, you're not going to buy the figure, so please shut the fuck up. We all know you're not going to buy the shit. Just stop. But that's how that's how it was. It's a recipe for disaster, you say?
Yeah, it is. When you, as an artist, you put it up to a popular vote.
I'm not gonna lie. Rain Man has told me or asked me multiple times to post a, interest thread, and you used to see those interest threads on Sideshow Freaks, bro. It would be hundreds of comments, and that's where some of the battling with us happened too. But dude, okay, so we're past 1 hour, and I'm gonna have to edit this. It makes me kind of want to shit in my pants and just walk around the rest of the day with it in my pants. Like, that's literally what editing an hour of work makes me want to do. But I keep looking at my phone and it says 58 minutes with Tim, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we talked for another 20 minutes before I hung up on him because I'm a retard. But I think we made some great points. There are a lot of other topics that I would like to talk to you, especially about. So I'm going to name this podcast, one of two, one of three, maybe, because we have just barely scratched the surface.
No.
But for right now, I'm trying to keep my podcast under an hour, because people are not. I mean, I wouldn't listen to some shit for over a half hour. So we're gonna try to keep it. Right. It's like the world we live in. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I think a lot of points were made. I think people kind of understand more about our intentions and why things were or seem to be the way that they were, for us at least. I want to thank you, and I want to wish you a happy birthday. I hope that you have a great day, and I really appreciate you joining us. I will put links in the description for your Instagram on Superbad Action Figures. So again, follow Tim Samra, a good buddy of mine, Superbad Action Figures. Is there anything else you wanna comment on before we fucking peace out?
No, man. I think that really, really wish you the best on the podcast. Like I said before, it's a really long time coming. I didn't think you'd actually get to this point, so I was pretty shocked when you sent me the images of the studio that you put together for it. And I should have known better. I should have known you were going to eventually do it.
Well, I appreciate that, sir.
It's a good thing, man. It really is. This hobby needs this. My hope is that people, the genuineness of what people have to say come out, other than a lot of like high-fiving and agreeing on everything. I mean, I think people being honest, feeling safe to be able to speak their mind has always been my desire for SSG. It was a place where people could speak their mind. And then, you're going to get people that are going to disagree. Grow skin. You know what I mean?
Right.
Be a big boy, put on your big boy pants.
Yeah, everybody does in the world we live in. Everybody receives a ribbon and a trophy, so we need to kind of kind of step back
Yeah,
from that
that's
whole idea.
Unfortunately, that's not the world I grew up in, man.
Well, we're
Being a
gonna
70
keep the SSG figure it out thing as real as we can without,
Awesome.
Yeah. So again, I want to thank you for joining us, and we will be signing off here. All right, guys. So until next time, you heard it here. Tim Samra, Super Bad Action Figures, Figure It Out, Stiff Richard, Stiff Dick. We are out this bitch. Later.